Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the most important metabolic pathway of the cell, which is known as glycolysis. Let's start with the overview. In this tutorial, we are going to talk about the introductive part, steps of glycolysis, regulation of glycolysis, importance, and disease caused by the malfunctioning of glycolysis. So let's start with some salient features and general characteristics about this metabolic pathway. Glycolysis is also known as Embden-Meyerhof pathway on the name of scientists who discovered them. These are Gustav Embden, Otto Meyerhof, and Jacob Carol Pernas, who discovered this pathway. Glycolysis occurs in cytosol of the cell in most organisms, and the word glycolysis made up of two words, glykis, which means sweet, and lysis, which means splitting. The word resembles the characteristics of this pathway, which means breaking down of sugar or 6 molecule sugar, which is glucose or fructose generally. Glycolysis occurs in both aerobic and anaerobic conditions, and it takes place in all cells. That's why it is known as one of the ancient metabolic pathways for production of ATP in cells. In some human or in some cells like our erythrocytes, human retina, cornea, where mitochondria is absent, there glycolysis is the only pathway to produce ATP for these cells. It is a type of catabolic reaction, and the reversal of glycolysis is called gluconeogenesis. The word gluconeogenesis means production of sugar. After the general features, now let's discuss about the steps of this pathway. Glycolysis basically consists of some major steps, which are phosphorylation, isomerization, cleavage, isomerization, and oxidation. Now we will discuss these steps in brief with the help of diagrammatic representation. So the whole reaction is divided into two phases, which are preparatory phases and payoff phases. The preparatory phase of glycolysis is also known as energy investment phase. As the name indicates, in this phase the energy is invested into the reaction in the form of ATP, and another phase of the reaction is known as payoff phase, also known as energy generative phase. And as the name indicates, in this phase of the glycolysis the energy generates in the form of ATP or NADH. So with the help of this diagrammatic representation, we will discuss both the phases of glycolysis in brief. This is the image showing the preparatory phase of glycolysis, where glucose is converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxyacetone phosphate within the multi-step reaction with the help of many enzymes and coenzymes. So the reaction consists of 10 steps totally. 5 are of preparatory phase and another 5 are of payoff phase. In the first step, there is a phosphorylation of glucose into glucose 6-phosphate, and in this step the enzyme hexokinase or glucokinase is working, and it changes glucose into glucose 6-phosphate. This glucose 6-phosphate is isomerized in the presence of phosphoglucoisomerase and changes it into fructose 6-phosphate. In the third step, fructose 6-phosphate is converted to fructose 1,6 bisphosphate with the help of enzyme phosphofructokinase, and then enzyme aldolase splits it into two sugars, which are glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxyacetone phosphate. These two sugars are isomers of each other, and with the help of enzyme triphosphate isomerase, these two sugars are interconvertible into both forms. Here the preparatory phase of glycolysis completes with the formation of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. The dihydroxyacetone phosphate also converts into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate with the help of enzyme triphosphate isomerase, and then this glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate take part in the further reaction. So, with the help of diagrammatic representation, in this slide we will learn about the second metabolic phase or the payoff phase of the glycolysis. In this phase, we will see the conversion of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate into 2 molecules of pyruvate and also production of 4 molecules of ATP. So let's learn about the steps of payoff phase of the glycolysis in details. In the first step, we have glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate from the preparatory phase of glycolysis. So in the first step of this phase, the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is phosphorylated into 1,3 bisphosphoglycerate with the help of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. And in the another step or the seventh step of glycolysis, this 1,3 bisphosphoglycerate is converted into 3-phosphoglycerate, and this is also an irreversible step of glycolysis. Here the substrate level phosphorylation occurs, and due to this the 2 ATPs are formed from the 2 adenosine diphosphate molecules. This 3-phosphoglycerate is later converted into 2-phosphoglycerate with the help of enzyme phosphoglycerate mutase. This is the reversible reaction, and 2-phosphoglycerate is later converted into molecules of phosphoenol pyruvate or PEP. The reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme enolase. And now the second ATP forming reaction or the second substrate level phosphorylation occurs in the 10th step of glycolysis. This step is also irreversible, and in this step the phosphoenol pyruvate is converted into pyruvate kinase or molecules of pyruvic acid with the help of enzyme pyruvate kinase. So in this slide we have learn about the payoff phase, the enzymes who catalyze the reactions of payoff phase, and the molecules formed in the payoff phase. Now, with the help of this slide, we will discuss about the regulation of glycolytic pathway. So the glycolytic pathway regulates by some enzymes which are hexokinase, phosphofructokinase and pyruvate kinase. All of the three enzymes are irreversible, and the reaction catalyzed by these enzymes are irreversible. Here, with the help of this diagrammatic representation, we can see the regulation of glycolytic pathway in detail. In this diagram, we can see the 3 steps of glycolytic pathway, which are first step, third step and 10th step are irreversible, and all the steps are reversible. The first step is catalyzed by hexokinase or glucokinase, and the third step is catalyzed by phosphofructokinase 1. The third step or the step which is catalyzed by phosphofructose kinase 1 plays a major role in the regulation of glycolytic pathway. This enzyme is activated with the help of adenosine monophosphate and the molecule of fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. But the molecule of ATP or the citrate act as an inhibitor for the molecule of phosphofructokinase 1. This step of the glycolytic pathway also an exergonic step or the first committed step of this pathway. Then the 10th step, which is catalyzed by pyruvate kinase, it also plays important role in the regulation of glycolytic pathway. In this step, the pyruvate kinase is regulated by fructose 1,6 bisphosphate and the molecule of phosphoenol pyruvate. And the pyruvate kinase inhibited by the molecule of ATP and the molecule of aniline. So, we can see enzymes hexokinase, phosphofructokinase and pyruvate kinase act like regulators of glycolytic pathway. In this slide, we will discuss about the significance and importance of glycolytic pathway. So the pathway is only pathway that occurs in all cells of body also in those cells who lacks mitochondria, because glycolysis occurs in cytosol of the cell. Glycolysis is the principal route for glucose metabolism, and it is the only source of energy for those cells that lack mitochondria, because the cells who lack mitochondria, like human erythrocytes or cornea and retina, are not consist of any double membrane bound organelle, and they also do not perform electron transport chain. That's why glycolysis is the only pathway for those cells to meet the cell requirements for ATP. The glycolysis occurs in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms, and in muscles, the anaerobic glycolysis completes the energy demand. Glycolysis is the reversible reactions are used in gluconeogenesis. Now, let's discuss about the diseases caused by malfunctioning of glycolysis or the lack of enzymes who are responsible for the fulfillment of the process of glycolysis. There are some diseases like deficiency of pyruvate kinase, which causes chronic hemolytic anemia, who affects the red blood cells of human. The another deficiency is due to the hexokinase deficiency, which causes anemia, and the enolase deficiency, which causes deficiency in muscles or muscles weakness. There are many other deficiencies or many other diseases caused by the malfunctioning of glycolysis or caused by the lack of enzymes. The type 2 diabetes and sometimes cancer is also caused by the lack of enzymes. Now, in this video we have discussed about glycolysis, its steps and its regulation in the human cell.